I got a request from Zamir Badan to talk about how Masters of the Universe Classics could have been at retail. All right, let's talk about that. I'm Scott ToyGuru Neitlich. I was the brand manager for MOTU Classics on Matty Collector, and I definitely get asked a lot, like what were retail plans? I always talked about in a movie year being at retail. And what exactly did that mean? Did it mean this? Did it mean, taking the green figures and putting them on an end cap? Heck no. This was a one-time, well, for lack of a better word, mistake when one group wasn't talking to another and the clearance group took a bunch of He-Man figures from Classics without talking to me and shipped it to like 3 Walmarts, and boy did it create like a storm. This was not the plan. This was like a one-off accident, if you will, that happened. But let's talk about getting Classics actually to retail and what that would have been like. So there's been a couple different form factors of Masters of the Universe outside of Classics in the last few years, and some have been more successful than others, some only online, and there have even been some that have done it retail. I mean, the WWE Masters, do you consider that a He-Man line? Do you consider it a WWE line? I suppose it's a little of both, and that's a legitimate good example of a He-Man line at retail. Now, they obviously had the entertainment of WWE behind them. It wasn't based just on Masters and just on He-Man, and that was a big reason it was able to get to retail. Entertainment is so important. Other things like the Mega Bloks line, which I love this. I actually was pitching this for years at Mattel, and I was so excited to see that it finally happened. But the retail presence of this is, it's so-so. I mean, they've had some single figures and they've had the vehicles. But it hasn't been like a huge line like the vintage era, although it is a different play pattern, which is one thing I love about it. And now we have this line, Masters of the Universe Origins, which is about to hit retail at Walmart this year, and I guess the plan is after success there, it'll go everywhere next year. I don't know all the details because I don't work for Mattel anymore. I just hear, what they have to say in their press releases. But we are looking at what, quote unquote, would be a mainstream collector/kid He-Man line versus Classics, which was just for collectors. This was not aimed at kids at all. I mean, it was great if they wound up in the hands of kids. They were definitely age graded for kids to play with them. And I've heard from a lot of fans who had kids who gave them Masters of the Universe Classics figures, and the kids loved them, which is awesome. But these weren't at retail, they weren't at mass, they were only online, and they were a little bit expensive, compared to retail figures. So what does it come down to? It all comes down to entertainment. Without entertainment, without a movie, without a TV show, maybe a comic book, it's really hard to place toy lines at retail. They want to really see something that's going to be in theaters, that's going to be streaming, whatever it is. Content is the key. It's all about entertainment, and that links directly to retailers taking figures at retail. Now, obviously, Masters of the Universe is coming back with that. They have not just one Netflix series, but 2 Netflix series. And that's probably a big reason why Mattel is, if you will, gambling on putting out a new line at retail, ideally at mass. Now, when you're putting out a line at retail at mass, I've mentioned this in other videos, you have to think about planograms. And that's the idea that there's lower price points at top, there's mid price points on the shelf, and then there's sort of the under the tree birthday gift at the bottom, and it goes up in price. Price points basically dictate the design of a toy line because you want to design toys to the price point. So let's talk about the Green Lantern movie line. Yeah, who thought that was going to be your introduction to the Masters of the Universe Classics at retail? But there's definitely a point here, and let me explain. So I was the brand manager for the Green Lantern movie line. It was one of the last lines I did before moving over to the Wheels Group to manage the Star Wars Hot Wheels launch. But before that, Green Lantern, I had such a great time on this. It was so much fun. I got to go to the premiere. I met Ryan Reynolds, blah, blah, blah. I know the movie wasn't the huge hit we hoped it would be, but the toys were awesome. The toys were so cool. We put so much love into these. And not only did we do kid toys, but we did collector toys as well. We did exclusives. This was an exclusive for Toys R Us in the collector line, what we call the Movie Masters line. So here's the bread and butter of it. In addition to the movie product, Flanking it was this DC Universe Classics Green Lantern Classics subline, which was 2 waves. And it was basically green carded DCU Classics figures that were all from the world of Green Lantern. Some were from the movie, some were just, crazy characters. I mean, heck, Neitlich was even in there. That's a whole other story for another time. Thank you, Jeff Johns, for naming that character after me. I had nothing to do with it, I swear. All right, and we even had movie characters in the comic book wave, and we got a lot of flack for that. It's funny how nowadays that's very mainstream, but that's not important right now. That's a video for another time. The point is this green carded version of DCU Classics was there to flank the movie product, and it could either act as an exclusive for one retailer, or it would basically just expand the retail presence. But it had a home because it could flank retail. It was, here was Green Lantern in the regular orange packaging, which was not part of the line, but it showed how it was the same figures from this line, just done in a sort of movie green package that could expand the movie planogram. So really, the idea was to do the exact same thing with Masters of the Universe Classics. We could take these figures and flank a movie line with a 1-foot strip planogram of Classics figures. And really the idea was they were kind of going to look like this. The idea was to basically re-release the most popular figures on red cards that would look like the vintage figures, which is exactly what they're doing with Origins now and what Super 7 did with their figures. But years before that was basically the plans that we were talking about. And these figures, would be single figure releases that would flank movie product, and the movie was the entertainment, the vehicle that would have got them to retail. Now, a good example actually is She-Ra. So I very deliberately packed her out with her mask in sort of the vintage cross-sell pose because I was saving the more traditional, like the Filmation head, the one you see packed in next to her, for that movie year retail release in order to differentiate it from the original Classics release. So the reason you got She-Ra without, the Filmation head was packed, her more well-known head was packed down below there and not on her, was so we could do this. You could do the, classic quote-unquote Filmation head on the red packaging at retail. This was always the idea. That's exactly why She-Ra was packed out in Classics the way she was. We were saving this head for the pack out for a movie year, which at that point we thought a movie year was happening, any moment. It could have been the next year or the year after. So we thought we were basically almost there. And that was also a reason why so many of the figures came with either double heads, or really the rule was they all had to come with at least 2 accessories. Because the idea was in that movie year, when we had it at retail, we would have eliminated the extra head and the extra accessory. So it would have been 1 figure with 1 accessory. Maybe, He-Man just with his sword, if you will, or Skeletor just with his Havoc staff. And then to continue that planogram concept, the beasts like Battle-Cat and Panther and, maybe even Swiftwind or others, those would have been on the mid-shelf, if you will. And then on the bottom shelf, we would have done Castle Grayskull, which, of course, we eventually did in Classics as a, kind of a Kickstarter, Hasbro, HasLab Pulse kind of thing. We were there years before that, but that's not important right now. But that would have been the bottom shelf. So you would have basically gotten a strip of Classics figures, of basic figures, beasts, and playset to flank movie product. And we would have definitely focused on the main characters. You wouldn't have seen Mighty Spectre at retail, probably not. But, characters that were either the main characters or characters that were in the movie and basically have the Classics version of that figure, flanking it, that was sort of hand in glove. And again, the vehicle to get Classics to retail would have been the entertainment. Obviously, MOTU Origins, has the Netflix series that hopefully will be huge. But this is basically what Masters of the Universe Classics hypothetically would have looked like. It would have been MOTU Classics figures on red cards hanging as kind of like a 1-foot strip to the left or to the right of the movie product, which would have had like 5 feet or 6 feet of product, kind of like Green Lantern did. So obviously with MOTU and He-Man heading back to retail, starting at Walmart, I'm, as a fan, personally excited. I mean, it's so great to see He-Man kind of becoming mainstream again after having to hibernate on Matty Collector for years and only being aimed at kind of the adults and, showing up at PowerCon and that kind of stuff. It would be so awesome. And the same thing with the Netflix series. They now have a vehicle. They now have a entertainment component, and that is the key to getting to retail. So, hey, I hope everything in retail does so well. I hope the future of the brand is so bright. If there's anything I missed in this video, leave them in the comments below. I could always do a follow-up. Thank you for subscribing and giving me a like, and I'll see you guys around the internet and in the toy aisles and anywhere else He-Man might be found. Thanks so much for watching.